All right. Well, hello everyone and good morning. Welcome to our release recap for December 2025, our first session of 2026. So this is very exciting. My name is Amanda. I'm going to be talking us through USAS to start. I will say USAS is going to be pretty quick. We don't have any inventory this month, so I'm going to move pretty quickly into Ippy Dippy. And then Lori is going to cover us for USPS next. And Michelle will wrap us up with ESS. And she's also going to talk about some of the training updates for 2026. So you'll want to stick around for that. Okay. So I'm on our December release recap page. And for USAS, we had one release. This was the 22.1 hotfix. I wanted to explain kind of briefly just why we're seeing a hot fix here. We do have Document Store right on the horizon, so that's going to be coming out soon. With that, our regular releases sort of have some of the setup for Document Store included in them. And because that's the case, we had a couple finalizing things that they're still working on. So instead of having it just be labeled a regular release, it's being labeled as a hot fix just so that we could still be putting out issues in the meantime while the rest of that is being finalized. Um, so we may see that again in January. So I just wanted to kind of briefly explain why we're seeing a hot fix instead of a regular. Obviously, December too with the holidays is a month too where we have more vacations and stuff. So we just had this one on the USAS side for now. What we did with that is we fixed a couple bugs. And the first one that we fixed was the outstanding disbursement summary report that runs as part of the monthly bundle. So for um, when the posting period is closed, that SSDT monthly bundle that kicks off, that includes a bunch of reports, but one of them being the outstanding disbursement summary. And what we wanted to do was hone in on what exactly this is running for to make sure that it makes sense for what people want in their bundle. So now it doesn't have any start date, but it has an end date. And so basically that ensures that it can show any outstanding disbursements, not just the outstanding disbursements that were created within the month that's being closed. So that is set to properly be included on the report for any bundles that are generated going forward. The next thing was the mass load option. So I know I talked about mass load a whole lot last year because with the account updates that are happening from AOS, mass load is just such a huge tool to be able to use to either update or add new accounts. And what we found when some people started using that is that it was getting this like odd duplicate error when you were trying to update accounts that already exist. But it definitely is intended that you can use that function to update existing accounts. So we cleaned up that error. It's been corrected to properly be able to create and edit both the revenue and the expenditure loads are fixed now. I linked the documentation with all the specifications for those loads just for like a quick reference. But that was cleaning that up, so it's good to go. And then the last USAS thing is we did a patch to remove a negative encumbrance due to a bug. This was for a specific district, like one very specific situation. We get in those patches when we can for any districts that have things that they can't fix on their own. So that was also included. And then, yeah, nothing for inventory this month for December. Um, so I will be moving on to Ippy Dippy next. Give me just a second in case anyone has any USAS or inventory questions, because I know that's quite the gear switch. Let me scroll on down here as well. All right. All right, well, I am still keeping an eye on the chat. So if you think of any questions for that, or if you have anything on these other sections, definitely let us know. Um, Next, we'll talk about individual professional development plan releases, Ippy Dippy. We had three of these in the month of December. We had two regular releases and a hotfix. I'll tell you, the hotfix was something very quick and simple to address something that came on the regular hotfix, so nothing too big there. But the regular releases had a lot of different features added. So, new features that we're talking about. The first one is going to be adding effective dates to plans, and allowing this to display, as well as approved and the submitted dates in the grids. So we are going to jump in and take a look at where we see these. And you know what? I'm so sorry. Let me see. Actually, you know what? I was gonna say, I'm so sorry. I should have logged into that earlier, but I think we'll just go in as one of these users. And then we don't even have to do that. Okay, let's see. Make sure. I think I got somebody with district manager. Yes. Okay. So, where this is, so effective date is where this is going to be on the plans. And so I'm just going to go like the district plans grid. So this would be like a committee member, district manager could see this view. And when we're on here, if we go to our little drop down here, we now have the option to add to our grid submitted date, approved date, effective date. And so these columns are right in the middle here. Now, the submitted date, let me see if I can make these a little bit wider since we're focusing on them here. And we'll do a zoom in. The submitted date is going to correspond to when that plan was submitted for final approval. Now, some of my dates here, these are records that I my sort of my test records I created a long time ago, but I believe we can look at this one here. So if I go to the approval trail, I have submitted for final approval, and then when it was approved was 7/1 and 7/7. So submitted for final approval, and then the approved date is the final approval date. The effective date, you'll notice these are all blank. So they don't have to use effective dates, but this is a field that we had requested by some districts because basically what they may want to do is set a date of like when should this plan be in effect, basically to accept activities. So the scenario that was given to us is, maybe their plan gets approved in the fall, but it should be effective back to 7/1 of that fiscal year. And then any activities that they submit, as long as it's starting within that date range, then would be acceptable. And so that date necessarily isn't the approved date or even the submitted date. That would be like a separate effective date. And so we added that field so that that could be added. So it can be added in here by users with this view, with this district plans view. So again, committee or district manager. And what you would do is they would edit the plan. And then there's this effective date field right here. And so then you could pick your date and save that in there. Now, here's the other key, and I have this noted on our recap page and also in our documentation, is if there is an effective date, then any activities with a start date prior to that date cannot be entered or accepted. So in this case, I'm changing this plan that already had activities, and it's saying, hey, if you're putting this activity or if you're putting this effective date on it, we have existing activities that are prior to that date. Like, do you really want to do that? So I can confirm, but it's, at least showing me what those are. And then let me save that up and let me just switch back here. So just to make sure I say this exactly right. So if there is an effective date entered, only activities with the start date after the effective date can be approved. So They may be able to create them, but they can't be approved. And then the other thing is, okay, the submitted and approval dates based on the approval trail. We looked at that. So those are new. Those are interesting. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's all we wanted to look at with that one. So, kind of connected to that then is we also made an update. We made an update to the kiosk plan loader. Now, how it was working before is with the kiosk loads, with that plan load, the submitted and approved dates from the imported records, the imported plans, the dates were in the file, but we weren't actually picking those up and pulling those into IppyDippy before. So um, we made an update so that if, like, for those plans that were imported from the legacy kiosk, we wanted to make it possible that if they want those dates in there and want those fields populated for those records, you could reload the plan file and pull those dates in now. And with the updates that we made to this, that makes sure that so for any duplicate records, like when you go to import, your plan already exists, you've already imported it once, it only will add the dates. It's not gonna update, it's not gonna like set the data back on the other fields. So like if they've changed anything in the new software or maybe the plan's like since been approved, none of that is gonna change from reloading. It'll only just add the dates. So um if any districts that were imported after this update, this was the 2025 19.0, which I believe was the 5th. Yeah, it was the 5th of December. So any that were loaded after that, this would have been included on the initial load. Now, I know this one sort of brings up the question then, okay, so if you already loaded all your districts before this, like, should you be reloading? I think it depends. Like, first, if they want these submitted approved dates in there. The other thing, though, is we have another follow-up issue that the team is working on right now. This is planned for our first release of 26, where they're actually creating some additional loaders for plan and activity. That would bring in the entire audit trail history from the legacy system. So I think for now I wouldn't suggest to like, rush to do this because when we get that other loader in, you may want to just do a wave of like getting some of these history in for your districts. I mean, certainly that would be a helpful thing to do, but you may be able to just kind of make a plan and do those both at once. Organize those together so you're not having to like go through and do them all and then go through and, do another an additional load again once that comes out. Let me get my wiki out here. We are working on, and I guess I'll say, first of all, Justin is planning to add details on that additional load to the release notes for the next IppyDippy release. And I clicked use as. And I'm also working on updating our import to kiosk page. So we don't have everything in here yet because part of that, again, is still in development. But there is a new section here, follow-up imports, where this has the information for this release that I'm talking about on the recap today. But we'll also be adding probably another section here for the new ones as well. So. Yeah, I don't, if you have districts that, want those dates in right away, you certainly could, for importing um, the submitted and the approved dates. So, I just want to mention that that's available, but kind of also, I think more of a heads up if, unless you have somebody that definitely wants it right now. Okay, next, we have a new configuration that allows customizing plan reminder emails. So for this one, I have a screenshot. We also have it added to the documentation. And so this is related to the page. Let's see. Users without a plan. And so we have this option here where you could select users and send emails to them. So if we come into our system configuration, we have plan reminder email configuration. And if I open this up here, okay, so this is what it looks like. And let me see. Um, when they go to send these, so like they'll select their people from the list and it's going to send an email to, any of those users that they select who doesn't have their plan submitted for approval, right? But there are different scenarios of what that user could be in, right? So what those users, they may not even have created their plan at all yet. Maybe they created it, but they just never submitted it for approval. Or they have created it, they submitted it for approval, and it got returned for modification. They need to go update it and submit it again. So there are sort of different situations each user could be in if they're on that list. And depending on which one of those situations, they'll receive an email that is relevant to that situation. So that's why when we come in here, we have these three different options. Certainly, they could just make them say all the same thing if they wanted to, but this sort of gives some flexibility to sort of customize what the users get for their certain scenario to like make it make sense for them, right? So if they haven't created any plan at all yet, it will be reminder, create your plan. Um, and then it comes in here, it could have a application link, reminder, submit your plan for approval or update it and resubmit it. So this configuration allows customization of these. So if you want to just, add anything here, like if there's a certain detail that should be included in all of those, in all of those messages that go out, it could be customized. So that configuration allows that. And then the other configuration that we added here is it allows activities to be turned off. So this is the Ippy Dippy functionality configuration. So that's this one right here. And so see, we just have a checkbox for activities. Hang on, I'll talk about that in a second. I didn't realize it would pop up right away. So pretty much what the situation is. So, I know like a lot of districts would, they have their plan and then they track their activities that contribute towards like their CEUs. But some districts using the software, they don't necessarily want to have to enter all of their activities. They just make the plan. They don't submit any activities within the software. And so in that case, like they really don't need these pages. Like we have all of the activity pages, we have activities on the home screen. And so if somebody's not using activities at all, then really this is just a way to like disappear those pages. So you could just take that out, those wouldn't show at all. Now, the important part here, let me get this pulled back up, is if you're in here, and this is why we have such a big warning, is if the district does have activities that have already been created and you uncheck this and you save this and update it to like see what it looks like or something, it's going to deny any activities that exist and there is not an undo. So this is one where you kind of don't want to accidentally, be like, oh, let me see what that looks like. I wonder what that would do. It will do something that is irreversible. So when we click this, it gives a big warning that says that. So luckily, like that should be prevented. Disabling this will change all outstanding activity statuses to denied. Are you sure you want to do this? And then you would proceed and save if you did. But um, in the case that this is actually intended for, they likely don't even have activities in the first place, so that wouldn't matter. But you just want to be careful with this one for any districts that do actually use activities. Now, if there is one that maybe they've used activities in the past, but they aren't going to be anymore, then yeah, any existing activities can be denied. You're not going to see them anymore anyway. So um, that would be fine. Okay. Excuse me. Um, and then the last thing on our new features is we also added a new audit report. This is similar to the ESS audit report. So if you're familiar with ESS, this is going to look very familiar to you. Oh, Heidi says, thank you for adding that. Yes, no problem. Um, let's see. Yeah, I assume that was about the activities configuration. Yeah, I'm sure for districts that don't use activities, it's nice to just not have to see anything additional on the side. All right, so let's reset here. So where I'm going is going to be under the system menu and the audit report. All right, so we have the revision object type, and so this is going to be like, what part of the software do you want to, see the records for? What do you want to audit essentially? But, so you can see in here, like you could look at the activity related to activity, like plan records, committee, so user records. So, you would come in here and sort of pick what you would want to run the report for. If you had a specific ID for records that you're looking at, there is an option for that. You could choose which username you would like to audit if you want to see only activity related to what a certain user has performed. Operation is going to be like add, do I want to see just creation, just records for like creation of new items. Mod is like, do I want to see only when maybe somebody edited a record, and delete only when somebody deleted something. We have our sort option, so that defaults to timestamp. So like what, order did things happen within time frame, and our sort order. And then we have our start date here. So let me just double check. I have it in my, okay. We'll do December 1st, 2025. So start and stop date. And there is this section as well for the sub-report option. So include field report, hide unchanged field values. So that one is unchecked. I mean, we really just want to see things that changed. So we can leave that unchecked to get like pretty much what our standard audit report would be. But let me generate here and just show you real quick. These have a lot on them. So, with doing an overview here, I'm not sure we want to look too deep, but see, we have our timestamp, our username, whether it was like an add, edit, or delete. Here is our entity type, like so this is an activity, and then it highlights what was changed. So in this case, these were archived. These records were changed from, archived to approved, approved to archived. And it gives you an audit of your information. All right. So that's the audit report. We also did make some improvements throughout the software. Um, so a couple things. We improved various filters on the user grid, making them contain instead of starts with. So this is basically just I came in here to see if I could get an example, but basically just like our filters up here on the start grid. We just changed a little bit how those work when filtering. Um, so it's contains instead of starts with. So if there's something that let's see. So like I can type well, which is black well, it's contained within this field versus I have to know the exact start of it. So um that sort of helps with filtering, maybe with like usernames if I wanted to look up something that was just part of the username, but I didn't know exactly if it started with their name or their initial, just to make filtering a little bit easier there. Displaying the source error on downloadable stack trace if the professional certification sync should fail. So this is just changing it. If you do get this specific error related to the professional certifications, this allows you to download the error log. So, we can investigate that when needed more easily. And then the other one that we have on here is improve spacing on the home view by making activities and the professional certification tabular. So one thing that we've worked on quite a lot over the last couple months, really since like Ippy Dippy had started is, they've added a lot to this homepage. And now we're kind of like making some adjustments for how it looks just for like visibility, so it's not too overcrowded. And so what this specifically is this section up here, it used to be split like top and bottom, but it has recent activities and then it has the certifications, which I'm in a test, so I don't have any, but if a user's certifications would show in this grid here. So instead of just having that stacked, we changed it so they can flip back and forth through the tabs. And that just allows a little bit more space in this box to actually be able to view a list of things instead of just having a small little list there. So that's that change. Okay, and then we're on to bugs. So there's a whole bunch of bug fixes here. Let me see. I have a couple that I definitely want to talk about. Um, so the first thing, fix committee members not being able to edit activities before approving them. This was a bug, for sure. So when I'm in here, and again, I'm logged into somebody that has committee member access, in approvals, in the activity approvals, committee members have the ability for plans that are in the approval process. Do I have any in final approvals? Yes. That are in the approval process where if I'm viewing on somebody else's activity, an activity that I'm going to go approve, I can edit. And I can edit things like, so say somebody, accidentally put semester hours, but they meant CEUs, right? So if something in here needs to be updated instead of, I mean, I could return it for modification, but if it's just something as a committee member that I know I'm going to update, I have the ability to come in here and update. So we had a bug where briefly they would come in here and they couldn't actually edit anything. And so we wanted to make sure that definitely was still able to be done. So that was fixed. We fixed a label for showing on like the supervisor professional certification views. I'm sorry, it was on like so the individual's view and the supervisor view. Um, Fix attachment loader file being completely empty if there are errors during import. So this would be like the error file on those attachment loaders. The hotfix, so there was an error that was on like the first release of the month that could prevent startup. So Justin was on that right away, made sure we got that hotfix out to make sure that that didn't cause any errors for, any impacts after somebody had applied a release. We fixed users being unable to complete reset password process via email sent from the bulk reset passwords. And then I believe another one. Oh no, I'm getting ahead. So we fixed the plan name not displaying when creating a new activity. And then this next one I want to look at as well. So we fixed the plan grid showing more CEUs than just those that have been approved. So we're back in the software. If we go to the district plans, or like a user can see this on their My Plans, but let's see here. Let's take our dates back off here. And you see we have this total CEU column. And if I were to like look at a plan, I have my total CEUs field here. So what this total CEUs is made up of is any approved activities. That is what's intended. That is what it is now, after we fixed it. But we had a bug where it had been showing, it had been including activities, like even if they were denied or first created, it wasn't just including the approved activities in there as it should. So we fixed that. So the total CEUs is just going to be due to approved activities. Um, I would note though, one thing that can be confusing sometimes is uh activities using progress units other than CEUs are converted to CEUs based on the LPDC conversion chart. So, just keep in mind if you're like looking at the activities and you see the progress units and then it doesn't look like it matches up exactly to this, it might be because one of those is a different progress unit than CEU that's being converted. Um, for reviewing those CEUs, which ones go into like which activities, I would say the report is very helpful for that. So you have the report um, of the plan activities report. Again, I don't have a good example in this test instance since that also ties to the licenses, but we do in the documentation. But if you want to see what make up those total CEUs, that is a really easy way to see it is on that plan report. But yes, so those are corrected. So the total CEUs only include approved activities now. This is the one I was thinking of. We fixed the self-register service being case sensitive with regards to the email address. And then just a couple other things here. Remove the sort and filter from the CEU total column on all the plan grids. So if you'll notice here, like this, you can't sort on this, but it's like a field that's being calculated. It's an informational field. So based on how that works, that was something that was determined to do. And then fix finding the plan owner using the wrong ID. This bug would cause no professional certifications to be available for selection on some plans. The internal ID, so that's something sort of behind the scenes that just is used to link records. So we updated that. And then the last thing here, we had a patch to clean up any orphaned document IDs that exist in Ippy but the document does not exist in Document Store. So just some cleanup having to do basically with attachments that don't exist in Document Store. So that was set there. So that is Ippy. Do we have any questions? I know that's kind of a lot to go over. But I'm very excited about some of the things that we were able to add, in this month, and some of the stuff that we're continuing to work on as well. All right. All right. Well, I will wrap it up. Lori is going to be up next with USPS, so we'll take just a minute to switch over here and then we'll get going on that. Awesome. Thanks, Heidi.
Okay, thank you, Amanda. Let me get
Yeah, no problem.
everything set up here to switch gears to
Okay.
payroll.
Stop sharing.
Okay, is everybody seeing you should be seeing the our release recap page.
Yep, looks good.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right. Well, I hope everyone had a wonderful holiday season, full of family and friends, and hopefully you're able to escape uh, life in the office for a bit and um, get some much needed rest. Um, as we move on to discussing, the payroll changes for December, you'll notice that most of the efforts um, from the development side focused on the overtime changes. So I don't know if anyone else is like myself and have found myself, waking up in the middle of the night having dreams about this wonderful topic, more like nightmares, right? But we are going to talk about all of those changes and hopefully work through some questions that everyone's had together so that we can all rest assured that everything's going to be okay. We're gonna get through this. By the end of 2026, we're all going to be overtime professionals, and you know, those nightmares are going to end. Um, so starting out, we did add a new field, excuse me, to the position record. And that's called the W-2 overtime classification field. So there's a screenshot here. Hopefully, all of you are fully aware of this. Yeah, I'm not sure. Here we go. It's just a little delayed. If I go to an employee's position record and I open one, you can see here this overtime classification field that we added. So, from the drop down, we can select exempt or not exempt. And then obviously the blank value as well. If this field is left blank, the default or what the system recognizes as blank, it will be exempt. Okay, I'm sorry, not exempt. We have this in our document here that I'm going to refer back and forth to, but if our question 5 here is, if that value is a blank, is the system defaulting to something? There's no default per se. It's not going to set the value for them, but if the value is blank, it is treated as non-exempt. Okay, so this value here, if it's blank, the system recognizes that as non-exempt. We'll bounce back to this document here, but I did want to point out that we have that spelled out if there's any questions. So when it comes to the improvements, the IRS kind of went through a series of releases and publications throughout 2025. And, at first this new tax changes went into effect. And then in August, they put out a statement saying that for 2025, there would not be any changes as far as, employers, needing to provide that information on the employee's W-2. So in November, they put out some guidance saying that they're relieving employers of their duties as far as having this printed on the W-2s in box 14. But that doesn't mean that employees can't, claim this when they go to file their taxes. So in order for employers, when it comes to state software, to provide that information on the employee's W-2s for 2025, the only means to have this information printed on the W-2 is by adding core adjustments. So, we added the W-2 overtime type as a core adjustment, and this will then allow those values to be printed on the employee's W-2. So just to recap, I'm sure that, everybody's knee deep in getting this information if they're going to provide this to their employees for 2025. They're already doing this, but if you go to core adjustments, I've already created one here. You select the federal tax payroll item. You'll see that the W-2 overtime type is available. They would then add the amount. And then once this is saved, this amount then will print on the employee's W-2. So I've kind of given you a screenshot or a sample of an employee's W-2, without, let me make this a little bit bigger for you. Without that adjustment, so you can see here that on the W-2 report, nothing is listed. I've now added that adjustment, and you can see here that that $150 is listed on the W-2 report, and it would also be included on the employee's W-2. Okay, so the only way to get that information on the employee's W-2 for 2025 is by adding those adjustments. Okay. All right. So kind of moving forward then to, 2026 and forward, we've added the ability to load the FLSA overtime field in an absence attendance import CSV load file. So if you have, districts that are using that attendance absence import option, they can now include that FLSA overtime field in their file. In the documentation, in the attendance absence import chapter, we have included the FLSA overtime column. It would be placed in column Z, and then the valid values for this field are included or excluded. So again, if this value is left blank, by default, the information, the FLSA overtime value will be set to be included. Okay, and hopefully we're all familiar with what I'm talking about here. When we jump forward to the document that I was referencing earlier, we'll go through some different scenarios and talk about that in a little more depth. But the FLSA overtime is on the payment side. So if I go to payroll payments future and I create an entry for an employee and I select the type of either overtime or blended overtime, I have the ability then to include or exclude this payment for reporting purposes. So if I select miscellaneous, you can see that this FLSA overtime value or drop down becomes grayed out or not available. So it's only relevant to the blended overtime pay type and the overtime pay type. If I select any other option, this field is grayed out. Okay. Again, we'll come back to how the position and the FLSA overtime values, work together in just a second. All right. So again, we've added that the ability then to load the FLSA overtime value if, districts are using the attendance absence import option. When it comes to how the FLSA overtime defaults on the payment side, we added the ability to default that back to the position in that overtime classification value. So again, as we were just talking about, those, the payment overtime classification value, as well as the FLSA overtime value, those two work together. Okay, so going back to our document, and again, I kind of bounced ahead and didn't really tell you where this beautiful document is located, but it is in our appendix. So for those of you that are not, excuse me, familiar, hopefully you've all seen this and been out there and taken a look at it. But in our appendix, we have under our useful procedures, we have a document that we've put together called Reporting Overtime under the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. So if you click on that, we've kind of put together all the information in one place, or that's what our hope is. You can go to one place and see everything you need to know about these changes. So we've outlined here, the position record and that overtime classification field that we talked about. If it's exempt from being reported, then that value should be set to exempt. If the position is not exempt from overtime reporting, it should be set to non-exempt. So if the position record is set to being exempt, then when it comes to the payment side and that FLSA overtime value that we just talked about, the system is going to ignore that altogether. If the position is set to exempt, I'm going to repeat that, it ignores the FLSA overtime value and it doesn't even look at it. So no matter how that value is set, it's ignored. It's not used by the system at all. It's only if the position overtime classification value is set to non-exempt that the system looks at the FLSA overtime value to determine whether that amount should or should not be included when it comes to reporting that on the employee's W-2. Okay? So we have a crosswalk here that kind of outlines, breaks down all the different scenarios. We've tried to put all the different, scenarios together in this chart here. So if the position overtime classification is set, if it's blank, if it's exempt, if it's set to non-exempt, but then on the payment side, the FLSA value is either blank, set to excluded, or included. What effect does that have at reporting that amount on the employee's W-2? So we've tried to go through every single scenario here and break down, the outcome as to, how that's going to look when it comes to the reporting side at the end of the year. Okay. All right. We're going to bounce back real quick to take a break from this document and come back to our recap sheet and just go through a couple other updates that were made. Again, we added the qualified overtime value to the W-2 report. So we saw that earlier. And then we're going to move on to just some printing updates and a few that happened as far as moving the address text down just, an inch and 3/4 on the legal forms. And this just ensures that the address aligns with the United States Postal Office or Service, their standards. We did have one report last year of a district having their forms returned by the Postal Service because of this. So we've, slightly adjusted that so that that does not happen for anybody. And then we also expanded the address text area to 40 characters wide on the W-2 forms. All right, that kind of wraps up, the W-2 reporting, printing, changes for 2025 and even, those that will begin taking place in 2026. We did have a few other changes as well, and one was disabling the SQL logging option. That's under in the monitoring service for all production applications. We did have a case where this was turned on for many districts, and it was causing performance issues. So there's really not any need for the production applications to have this option enabled. It's really just used by our developers for their testing and their debugging and those sorts of things. So that's been disabled for all production applications, so that will prevent that performance problem from happening in the future. And then for 2026, we did have, a Social Security wage-based change. So we've updated that for the upcoming calendar, for this calendar year, as well as updating the federal tax tables. All right. I'm going to bounce back quick to this document here that we were talking about earlier, and just, kind of step through these questions and talk through them. There's not a lot of them. Just real briefly go through so that everybody is on the same page here. And then if there are any questions at the end when it comes to the whole topic of overtime, we can talk about it. Can the FLSA overtime column be added to the payroll payments future and current grid? Absolutely. You can click the More button. You can go down and find the FLSA overtime option, click that field, and it's going to be added to your grid. Can the overtime classification column be added to the positions grid? Yes. Again, you go to the More option and you click that overtime classification box, and it'll show up on your grid as well. Can mass change be used to update the, set the overtime classification field on position records? Yes. We've also included some scripts, so you can download these scripts, import those and easily mass change positions instead of going through them one by one. So we've included some scripts there for you to use, and hopefully you'll find those helpful and useful, so you're not, starting from scratch. Can mass load be used to update the overtime classification field? Yes, mass load can also be used. That's another way to mass change your position records and update the overtime classification fields. We've included the required column headings here, as well as the applicable values. So there shouldn't be any questions as to what needs to be included in the load file. Again, we've made notes here that for the overtime classification, these are case sensitive. So you do want to make sure that the exempt and non-exempt, those values are in all caps. Is there a default overtime value on the position record? This one we already talked about. It's not going to default to a specific value. However, if it's blank, if this value is left blank, the system treats that as non-exempt. So then it's going to look at the payment side to determine how that FLSA overtime value was set. And if that was set to be included, then that amount will be reported on the employee's W-2. If that FLSA overtime value is set to excluded, then it will not be included and reported on the employee's W-2. Does the position overtime classification value need to be set exempt or non-exempt prior to the first pay in January? We're kind of past that point now because I'm sure everybody's already completed their first pay in January, but the answer is no. It does not have to be updated before the first pay in January. However, if that value, if the position record is blank, or not set correctly, then when it comes to the payment side, however, again, if the position record is blank, then the payment side is going to be used to determine whether or not that amount is included or not included when it comes to W-2 reporting in 2026. So again, it's important. It doesn't have to be set before their first pay in January, but based on how that is set is going to determine then, what information is collected and reported when it comes to W-2 reporting in 2026. They might have to, add some adjustments to make that amount something different if it's not correct. What happens in situations where the position overtime classification is set properly, but the FLSA overtime field is left blank? So if the payment side is left blank, then the system is going to default to the overtime classification field that's the value that's set on the position side. I think we've beat that home, hopefully. So if that's blank on the payment side, then it defaults to the position and how that value is set on the position side. What happens in situations where the position overtime classification is not set properly, but the payment side has it set properly? So again, the system is going to first look at how the position record is set. If it's set to exempt, then the system is going to ignore the FSLA overtime flag on the payment side altogether. In that case, adjustments would need to be created to report that amount. If the position overtime classification field is set to non-exempt, then the system is going to look at the payment history to see how that FLSA value was set. If it's set to included, then that amount's going to be included on the employee's W-2. If it was set to excluded, then that amount will be excluded from being reported on the employee's W-2. Okay? All right. What is the recommended way to process blended overtime? What we're suggesting, and again, this was discussed on the previous Fridays with Fiscal in November. We went through an example of that, and we have that example provided in last month's recap. But we do recommend that, a miscellaneous pay type be used for the first part, if you will, of the 1.5 overtime payment. And then we're going to use the blended overtime pay type for the 0.5 part. Okay. How does the pay amount summary report list overtime? Currently, those are combined together and listed as overtime units and OT pay amounts. So we do have a feedback issue, and we've listed that here to separate those out in the future. So that'll be a little easier to look at. If the overtime pay type is used, how does the system report the information on the W-2? Does the system know to only report the halftime portion? Yes. The system is going to calculate and only report the 0.5 on the employee's W-2. I know we've had a plethora of questions about, double time and, seeing exactly how the system is going to calculate and report this. Unfortunately, at this time, there hasn't been concrete information provided as far as how they want this to be reported, where it needs to be reported. There are talks of this information needing to be reported on the 941. So it would be included on the quarter report. Again, this is just talks. We've received nothing as, in concrete yet to determine how in specific, details of how this needs to be reported. But rest assured that once we do receive that direction, the system, we will put the pieces in place to make sure that that does get reported in the manner and the places that needs to be reported in correctly. Okay, so we're not trying to ignore or not be helpful in reporting that information to you. It's just we don't have all the details to give to you, so that we're also giving and providing you, the facts basically. So bear with us as we try to, get that information from the sources themselves. And once we have that information, we will, of course, you'll be the first ones to know. We'll pass that information on to you as soon as we have it. Okay. Number 12, we talked about the update that happened to the attendance absent import option and how that works. So we're going to skip by that. Will the FLSA overtime field be available when using the core attendance post to future and post to current option? We are going to be making that update. So yes, that will be coming. Number 14, will the FLSA overtime field be available when using the mass add option of attendance? Yes, that will be coming as well. And we've listed the JIRA issue here for that change. Number 15, is there a recommended report to obtain overtime pay types along with other pay types? So we had a meeting just yesterday with the development team, and we were trying to come up with something for everybody to use that kind of met, checked all the boxes. The pay type, the amount, the accounts, and unfortunately, we weren't able to come up with a report that kind of gave you maybe everything in a nice, pretty report like you were wanting. We have included a report definition here that's in the public shared reports library. So feel free to download this, use this as sort of one part of the reporting. And then you can use the account history version 2 to sort of give you the missing piece. So the combination of those two right now is what you will want to use or suggest to your districts to use for reporting. I've wanted to mention, while we're kind of talking about some of these enhancements and issues that will be coming. I know the last, several 13, 14, 15, we kind of talked about some enhancements that we would like to see. I put together a document and I actually link that back. If I go back to the December release recap here, maybe here we go. I've just added a section towards the bottom under the patches and internal section of the USPS part of the document. This says helpful resource, and I wasn't really quite sure where to put this, so I just plopped it here for your reference. But basically what this is a document of all of, let me open it here and bring it over. All of the outstanding JIRA issues that we have for overtime reporting. So you can see a listing of all of the upcoming, sorry, it's a little, oops, that is not it. Fail, where did it go? Just click on this here. Sorry about that. I had it open. Okay, so, it's an outstanding overtime issues document, and I've included all of the JIRA issues that are outstanding for this topic of overtime. I've linked the actual issue here. So if you click on that, it's going to take you to that specific issue. And then I've also included a column that says, the anticipated release. So you can see here that we already have, three issues on this list that are going to be released very soon. And then one that will be on, the release following it. So, the overtime report that we've received so many requests for was just recently added. And, the developers are aware that this is something that, your users are going to want pretty quickly here, so that, they can begin looking at things and reviewing things. So hopefully we'll see this, on a release here in the near future. Okay. I'm going to hop back to, I think we've covered everything on the release. Okay, I'm not sure what's going on here. Okay, we're back. All right. That is everything I have as far as the release goes. Does anybody have any questions before we move on to wrapping things up on the payroll side? Whoops, looks like we do have some questions in the chat here. Okay. I think, okay, good. I'm glad it's helpful. All right. One thing I did want to mention before we turn it over to Michelle is the you'll notice that we talked about the federal taxes and we talked about Social Security, but we did not mention anything about Ohio, the state of Ohio tax tables. We did on the last release release an update for the supplemental tax rate for Ohio. So that was updated to the 2.75%. However, the, standard Ohio tax tables have not been updated. We've been receiving a lot of questions about those, and rightfully so. And, the Ohio Revised Code states that we need to follow the Ohio state tax tables. So, if we go to those Ohio state tax tables, you can see, once this comes up here, not sure what's going on. My internet is it's really windy here, so I don't know if it's the wind or what's happening. But on the state of Ohio, the Department of Taxation, if we click on the individual income tax option, oh, I lied. We're going to go to the resources for businesses. All right, I'm like losing my train of thought here. I will find it for us. I just have to get back to where those tax tables are.
Sorry, I think it might be under the business, but if you scroll down a little bit farther.
It is, yeah, it's under businesses. I thought I had that clicked. Sorry. Thank you. And then oh my goodness. I swear I had this open for all right. Let me see. I have it bookmarked. I can certainly find it here. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry. I had this open earlier to click on and I must have trying to get to the link. And this is from the source, which is what we have to follow. So until the source is updated, we're not going to be making any changes to the software. So once this comes up, you can see, whoops, now we can see that. Here we go.
Lori,
These
I
have
think
not
they changed it again. They changed the view of the screen, so I think that's why it was different like
yes,
2
they
days
did.
ago. I swear.
So if we go down under tax rates here, and we look at the effective date, it's still reflective of October 1st. So again, until they've updated, until they change things on their end, we cannot change, things in the software. So, once we get word that this, has been changed and updated, then we will for sure be changing, making the changes in the software. And for those that aren't familiar, it's this first option here, the tax withholding tables, the percentage method is what we follow. So again, if you click on this, you can see that, these changes have not been implemented to reflect the 2.75. You can see down below the supplemental rate has been updated, but the regular tax tables remain the same. So again, just, a heads up as to why, we haven't changed things on our end. Mark has been in communication with, the Ohio Department of Taxation, and, they really haven't given him any kind of, definite date or timeline as to when this will change. So until that time comes, this is what we will follow. Okay. All right. Are there any questions regarding anything that we talked about? Again, keep checking out, back to referencing back to the document that we put together as far as, outlining all of the overtime. We're continuously, taking your thoughts and suggestions into consideration, and as things change as far as enhancements to the software are put in place, we'll continue to make changes to this and add to it and keep it updated. So please feel free to come back and check this out frequently. Okay, I'm going to check the chat one more time. Okay, thank you, Michelle, for putting that link into the chat. Sorry about that. I'm not sure why I couldn't find it. All right. If there are no further questions, I am going to stop sharing and I'll turn it over to Michelle. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone.
Thanks, Lori. And also, I'm glad you went over that at the end there. I was trying to catch my breath. I was outside chasing my recycle bin down the road. It is very windy in this area, so sorry for the crazy hair there, but I was able to catch my breath there so that I can move on to this. Okay, so let's finish this off here. I'll go over the employee self-service releases, and then we'll just wrap up with our registration list for 2026. So for employee self-service, we had two releases. We had a regular and a hotfix. And so on the regular release, we had a couple improvements here. So I'm going to go over to my ESS account here. And the one thing that we did is on the home view here, we just changed up the display a little bit. The actual workflow, whether it's leave approval or timesheet approval, is now more spread across the top of the screen. And we moved the custom links area down to the left-hand corner underneath the announcements area. It was custom links was kind of taking up a little too much space over there on the right-hand side, so we bumped it down there. And we do have an option too in the ESS functionality where you can turn off the custom link if you don't, if your districts don't use that. So that is something that can be shut off. So that improvement was made. Also, I'm going to go over leave adjustments here last. We also did an update with the leave request grid and the leave calendars for mobile access. So for those on their phone wanting to create a leave request, viewing their leave request, viewing their leave calendar, it's easier for them to maneuver around on their phones with that. So that was another improvement that we made. We do have an ongoing issue with a bug that's been happening, and that's this one right here regarding the W-2 acknowledgement view. We did have a fix on that in December, but we're still getting reports of it. So that was something that we discussed yesterday at our ESS sprint meeting. And so they're going to look into that further. They did create another issue. We've been struggling trying to recreate the issue on why they're getting that error still. And I know the ITCs, you guys have had trouble too trying to recreate it. But our developers have looked into it more, and they think that they're going to try and change the way that the service caches the user. And so they've created issue 1487. And so they'll get that out there on a future release, and hopefully that'll take care of this issue. Fortunately for the user, if they do get that error, they can just refresh the screen and they can move on. So it's not like it's preventing them from doing anything, but I know it's just a little annoying right now. So hopefully that issue 1487 will correct any further gremlins that are going on with that W2 acknowledgement error. The last thing I want to talk about is the leave adjustments. So I know that we disabled leave adjustments. We had it out there this summer, and then we had some issues with it, so we disabled it. Then we re-enabled it, basically made it available again in the application, but we have several enhancements that still need to be made to the leave adjustments. But I wanted to discuss what's out there right now, and then some of those that will be done here within the next release or two. We met with the developers yesterday, and they went over some of those upcoming enhancements. So I just thought I'd talk about them a little bit with you guys. So I'm going to go into my screen here, and I'm just going to go in and pick on a leave request. And one thing right now that in my instance is up to the development version. It's not the production. So you're going to see things a little bit differently because I have some of those issues that they're currently working on for the next release are in here. Just kind of want to talk about the leave adjustments. So where users can create leave adjustments is either through the grid, whether it's their grid, their leave request grid, supervisor leave request grid, district leave request grid. There is an option here, and one of our future enhancements is just to make sure that the leave adjustment is only available for exported leave. So you may not see this right now, but on the next release, it will restrict you from creating leave adjustments, obviously for initiated or approved leave. So that's one way. Another way that you can go in and look at leave adjustments is through I believe the leave manager role. They will have an option as well. Or is it? No, I think it's just its own leave adjustments option. Sorry. They'll be able to go in and look at leave adjustments as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and just view Susan. These are exported. She's got a 2-day leave, the 5th and the 6th. I'm going to go ahead and click on the create adjustment option. And here is what the window looks like, I said, with some of these enhancements that are up and coming. Right now, when you guys are in there looking at it, you are going to see an adjustment date. And so in here, what's nice is that when you view it, it is going to just highlight the 2 days that are included in that leave request. So my leave request was for the 5th and the 6th. So I can only do a leave adjustment for either of those 2 days. So I can manually go in and enter this in and select the date. If I just want to, let's say, back out one of these. Now, and at that point then, once I pull that in, the next thing it's going to do is basically, I can specify how much I want to back out. So if it was a full day and I want to do a half day, I can go in there and put this in there. Now, you are going to be putting in a positive figure. And with the next release, you will see this negative value that automatically appears in this field. Right now, you're not seeing that, but that is an improvement that's going to be in the next release. And if I just want to put in 1, I can put in 1 as well, just to back out the entire day. If I wanted to back out maybe a half day on the 5th and a half day on the 6th, I could go in and add an additional adjustment. And again, select the 6 for this one, and then go into my adjusted amount and put in, a 0.5 for this one, and then a 0.5 for this one. So these fields allow me to make a manual edit. And if it's where you don't want like particular, you know, amounts to be edited and you'd rather just cancel the entire leave request, the other option is to go in and create and check on the negate full request. And so it's either you're going in and using these options or you're going in and using this option. So I'm just going to back out of this stuff. One thing I want to show you here too is if I accidentally, went in and added an additional adjustment for an extra day within this leave request and I didn't mean to, I can just hit the negative and that will remove that. But if I don't want, I just want to basically adjust both days, instead of using the manual entry here, I can use the negate full request. And when I do that, it basically ignores what's up here and it just goes down here. And it's nice because it gives me a little summary saying you're going to negate the entirety of this request and this is what's going to happen. It's going to do create a negative or basically an adjustment for the 5th and the 6th. And so then once I click on create adjustment, what's going to happen then, I'll go ahead and do that. And then what's going to happen then is under the adjustments, okay, I did have that on here. Go back. Let me log out, log back in here.
It's under leave management.
Ah, there it is. Thank you. It's the last one. So in here then is where I can go in then and I can select those that I just did the adjustment on and export those out. So in the case of Susan's here, I'm going to go ahead and put that in, put in this time frame. And I'm going to see the ones from the 5th and the 6th. So I just put in a starting date just so I could narrow down my filter grid down here. And then from here, what's going to happen is I'm going to be able to select these and click on the export selected adjustments. And when that happens, it's going to create a CSV file. And then I'm going to go ahead and open that up. And here at this point, it will go in then, and those will be, they're still working on some of this stuff. So those will be negative values then. They're going to be that are going to be included on the CSV file. And then they can use this then to post into USPS. And then it will back out that absence information in payroll. So like I said, it's still a work in progress at this time. We're still, working on a few of these. So some of these things that I'm kind of showing you right now may not be quite available yet. But we do have, I think, 4 or 5 issues that we're going to have available on the next release or 2 that is going to go and, fix up this and make sure that this stuff is available for the districts to use. So that's basically what the leave adjustment will do. Any questions on that? Okay. Really, that's it for ESS. What I wanted to talk about with you guys is where we're at with the release cycle. For one, I know you guys are probably wondering when are the 2026 releases going to go out. So at this point, we have to make those Duo upgrades. I know Lori had talked about that earlier. And I think Mark is starting to get some of those out. I sent out an email at the beginning of the week, an SSDT notice about it. And so this certificate for Duo is going to expire on the 2nd. So we want to make sure that all our software applications comply with that. And that we upgrade to the newer version of Duo. And so I think Mark and some of his developers are working on that to get those out. So they're going to focus on getting that done first. And it's probably going to be hot fixes from what I'm understanding. And then from there, our next release is going to be Document Store. I don't have a date as to when that's going to happen, but when Document Store is released, it'll go out as like probably, I think, the first version of 2026. And then after that, we'll start a regular release cycle for the rest of the applications. But I believe that's where things are at right now regarding our release cycle. The last thing I want to talk about is our new training page, and I'm going to pull that up. And so in our SSDT meetings and trainings, underneath the calendar year 2026, when I click on here, it'll take you to our updated training page. And we tweaked it just a little bit this year. You know, we've got all of the training dates entered in here. We have a register link. And then once that training session is done and recorded, we will connect the recording link here. We'll link that. And if there are any supporting materials that go along with that training session, those will be linked in here as well. So just a little bit cleaner. And also, obviously, we're going to include the links of the session, and also any CEU information will be linked here. So that's kind of where we're at with all of this. So lots of goodies on this list. I know we have the W2C and ITCM overview that's going to take place here in January. That's the only other session we have this month. But I believe, you know, counting all these up, I think we have 40 plus sessions that we're going to go over with you guys this year. So we're looking forward to that. Do you guys have any questions in regards to the training page or the releases or anything else? Okay. All right. I think we hit you guys with plenty of information here today. Your heads are probably spinning, but we appreciate you guys taking the time to get on the call today and meet with us. Like I said, we'll have this recording out there, and this will be available here underneath our January 9th session here. And we hope you guys all have a wonderful weekend. Take care, and we'll see you guys in a couple weeks. Thank you.